All right. Welcome to the podcast. We've got an awesome guest on today. We have Ryan Magnon from Panda Mony Toys. Ryan, thanks for being on. I wanted to talk with you really because I wanted to learn about your process of developing a story to promote your work, because I actually think it's pretty brilliant. I mean, I was looking at your toy line Alternation, and you've got almost 1 million views on YouTube
Oh,
for your episodes. And I think that's fascinating. So can you kind of walk me into your origin story of what brought you to this, and how you're able to utilize YouTube to really promote your stuff?
yeah, I can go through that. We started off by talking to kids a lot, just about what they liked, and we had a
Okay.
few dozen story ideas, and just sort of ran a few by them. And they ended up picking a lot of stories that had the theme of animal powers with human powers, basically human traits.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the stories was sort of a X-Files for kids with a lot of intrigue and uh, secret agents and things like that. So they gravitated towards that. And it became Alternation after some extra development, and then the rest is history now. We kind of just kept going back and forth on putting our own ideas in, and running back to what the kids were saying about it, to incorporate all that into something cohesive. And then again, since they were kids, Facebook and Twitter and the other things, probably they weren't a good way to reach them. And then television, that it's difficult to get a television deal for
Yeah.
anybody. And we came close with getting television deals, but we still couldn't pull it off. So
Mm.
YouTube was the way that made sense. And even in some ways, I think that just from my observations, that there are a lot of as many kids probably on YouTube as Nickelodeon or whatever. So
YouTube is definitely this generation's version of television. They're
yeah,
all on YouTube. I mean, I'm a latchkey kid, so I mean, I grew up in front of the boob tube,
right.
watching TV, and run into the bathroom during commercials so that I can make sure I don't miss any of the episode, because Lord knows when you'd ever get a rerun, if you'd ever get a rerun.
Yeah,
But these kids, they're all on YouTube. It is their television.
yeah.
Um, so I think it's really smart marketing. So the goal was, we're going to make a toy line. We're not sure what the toy line is. We're going to do a heavy market research with the group of kids. So what ages were you looking at?
6 and up mostly.
6 and up. Okay.
Yeah, six to
And
actually, kids sort of tend to grow out of toys. The latest probably at 12. So even
so you've
11
got
is
a really, really
yeah.
tight kind of window of what you're going for. And it's specific, kind of like this anamorphic human-like creature hybrid. So where did the story ideas come from? You were inspired by the kids, and then you just started kind of riffing with them. And were you developing it and then coming back doing more market research until you kind of figured out which characters worked and what storyline they wanted?
Yeah, we did come back to it to test characters, and a little, like, our creative team would bring up concerns like, hey, will kids like hate this idea? So we would test that in the market research. Like, for example, because it was X-Files for kids, like, would there be some pushback against there being a sort of making the military look bad or something like that? So we
Right.
played around with kind of making sure that we weren't sort of offending those sensibilities, to where we would have a backlash.
Yes, that has to be so difficult. And you don't want to be, you don't want to come off as propaganda.
Right,
And then, but at the same time, you don't want to be, offending parents of the youth and being accused
right.
of, wow, yeah. I mean, I didn't consider that, because in the end, you just want to sell toys. And
I mean, I want to like
yeah,
develop a brand that's loved, and yeah, and because of that, sell toys. Yeah.
yeah, of course. No, I think it's brilliant. And so did you do the writing for the show?
I did writing. I did the kid lit books, and we had other folks work on comics, and then yet another person do the webisodes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. So
I actually
what
had
have
a
we
partner early on who wrote the webisodes. His name was Curtis Anderson, and he was on Sabrina the Teenage Witch. A little trivia fact. He
Oh
was
wow, that's amazing.
the
That's so did he go from your show to that
No, he started on Sabrina and
and worked on
did
your
a lot
show?
of
So he
things, and yeah,
yeah, brought a lot of brought a lot to the work.
he
So
brought a lot of industry know-how, especially. Yeah.
that's awesome. I mean, this reminds me of when they were developing He-Man, right? They had this
Yeah.
idea. They wanted to sell these toys. They wanted to create these larger than life characters, and they were actually using bodybuilders back then as the models, which I thought was fascinating. And then they would go to the kids, and the kids would tell them exactly what I mean, that's where they got a lot of their dialogue from, was like listening to the kids play. And so then they would work that in, like I have the power, like that came from kids playing, and
Uh-huh.
they put that right into the show. So I thought it was really cool when I saw what you were doing. It immediately made me think of that. And obviously this is a formula that works. So I like to bring on guys like you, so that for my writers out there who are listening, if they're looking at branding something, YouTube really is an option. I love the fact that you were doing market research, and not just once, but you were consistently like going back and doing the market research. So can you tell me a bit about like Panda Mony in general?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad it's a good segue because part of my arrogance in starting Pandemonium was just seeing that thing like Masters of the Universe. Hey, it worked back then, it can work again, even though people in the
Yeah.
industry were saying like, "Oh, a small company, you can't do that, and you can't, and like action figures, that's hard," and all this. There was all this like resistance within the industry. So yeah, like I said, that was I would just say, well, I just want to do what they did. How they made the stuff I like, I want to copy that. So, and it wasn't just a bunch of reboots over and over and things like that. And that sort of ended up like being part of our ethos was no reboots, no none of this like licensing 30-year-old stuff. So that was how it
Yeah.
started. Again, like I said, if I were to do it today, I'd be far more humble and say, "Gosh, it was a tough road." So yeah.
Well, I think it's, I'm looking at a bunch of like unboxings and stuff on videos. People love the toys. Like people my age love the toys. So I think there is um a nostalgia there for toys that remind us of back in the day. Not and because for the longest time these kind of McFarlane era toys have dominated the market, where they're hyper realistic and they're gritty and they're grimy and they're dirty. And I think there's something to bring back the larger toys that are clean and polished and have a really unique look about them and play.
Appreciate that. Yeah, that was. I mean, I was in the nostalgia trend too, just as much as anybody. I got a room full of like just peg walls, just all around of like all the stuff I've collected over the years. And yeah, I mean, after a while, I got to a point where I was like, well, I don't really need another, the new version of Leonardo and Donatello.
Yeah.
I gotta like, how much more can you collect? How much more can they do with that character? I don't know. So
So there's a niche that you saw that you could fill and kind of
yeah,
went into it.
I
Yeah.
was hoping. Yeah, it was like I said, a difficult road. Yeah,
But it
and
sounds like it's been successful.
it's had its ups and downs. Yeah, the biggest down was everything closed right after we launched. Was we launched our toys Christmas 2019. Hey, I invested all this stuff in
Wow.
yeah, like, hey, we're gonna do a live event tour. So we're gonna visit like Little League games with a van that's like decked out with Alternation logos and all these fun games and things. And then of course Comic Cons. But yeah,
Yeah.
none of that happened, and we had no idea when things were gonna reopen. It was a real rough time.
Yeah, COVID hit everybody. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Um, what about now? Are you finding things opening up for you now?
Yeah, we're starting. I feel as though I'm kind of rebuilding from scratch. I've got
Wow.
and we got a new brand coming up, Tank Drone, along with continuing the alternation content. So I'm
So
launching.
talk to me about Tank Drum.
Yeah, yeah. Tank Drone is a little. It's far more fun brand, more. Not that alternation isn't fun. That isn't the right word. See, I don't want to knock my own
Alternation is
stuff.
pretty cool.
Yeah, it's more of a lighthearted. That's the word I'm looking for. And the story is it's a future where instead of warfare, countries settle their disputes one on one in tank battle. And all the tanks themselves are sort of decked out, stylized. There's a greaser character, it's one of our main characters. And he's got a 57 Chevy style looking tank. And we've got a lowrider tank and all that sort of stuff. Gangster from 1920s has a sort of old-fashioned Rolls-Royce tank.
That's awesome. I mean, tanks are definitely popular. Is this another thing you did research with kids?
Yeah, it was our second highest right after alternation. Actually, it's hard to like depending on how you cut the metrics. It was just as popular as alternation,
So these
and it was
tanks
one
have
I always liked.
personalities.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Tanks have personality. It was really I looked at it like I really liked Street Fighter and Mega Man as a kid, and
Mm-hmm.
I took a lot of inspiration from those where there was all these competitors with their sort of from different parts of the world, and their culture kind of played a part into their archetype, and pulled that into it. So
And is it based on our world as we know it, or did you create a new kind of universe?
it's just sort of like in the distant future. So yeah,
Gotcha.
it looks basically like our world just with minor like, hey, there's that weird technological improvement that we don't have. So
That's pretty awesome. So with Tank Drone, the rollout's already happening or it's about to happen as far as
about to happen.
Comic-Con and everything?
Yeah, that's for 2024.
Okay.
Right now we're working with Studio Engi out of Japan, and they did most recently they did the Gamera animated series, which is really
That's
neat. It's
awesome.
on Netflix right now. Um,
That's
uh,
so cool. So
yeah,
with everything you've done, like what kind of advice would you have for somebody who's like, I have this IP I've created and I think going with a YouTube and building it out and franchising it is the way to go. Like, what would you suggest for somebody?
well, yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, yeah. I would say go for it. And if they're looking for sort of the resources of developing it into something like animation, there's
Mm-hmm.
lots of ways to get those resources. If you're not artistically inclined yourself, you might reach out to interns and things like that to do it. And there's plenty of animation studios overseas that can do work on a budget. um,
Yeah, I think that's very true. My son wrote a short script and it won a screenwriting award. So I wanted to surprise him. So I had a real small budget.
uh-huh.
And I was like, okay, I'm gonna get this made into a short script, into a short film for him, just so he could see, because he's like 10, 11 years old. And so, I mean, I went everywhere. I went on Fiverr. I went on, all of the different sites, freelancer. And I think that's where I found an animation guy. I want to say it was like Czechoslovakia, and he was right within my budget. And it's when I started realizing, like, okay, like artists out there want to work as bad as writers. And so you can find somebody, and he loved the project, and so they animated it for my kid. I brought in some friends to do the voices, and we put it together, and it was so awesome that it even had a little festival run as a short film.
Oh, that's neat.
Um, yeah, and so kind of like getting to see that come together and see my kid do that. So like, yeah, if you have a budget and you want to kind of start getting franchising out something and using YouTube videos, I think it's definitely a good way to reach kids, and you can find somebody to work with you. You know, of course, do your research. I think that's great.